Excuse me, I have no sound. So could you please put the sound on? Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I can't hear again. Yes, yes, I can.
Keeps going off my button. I'll have to keep my eye on it. I'm Deborah Platt. I'm chair of the meeting, and Councillor Lees is the deputy chair here. When speaking, please do not obstruct your mouth to enable lip reading or the use of closed captions. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off and there's no fire drill tonight. Please we have brief introductions around the, we're doing brief. Does everybody know everybody?
Excuse me, the sound is very, very poor. It's going in and out. If you could speak quite distinctly, maybe, because you have such a soft voice.
That's the first time someone's mentioned that one. I shall try harder. Okay, we were just going to do introductions, but I think there's only the officer Caroline Wolfenden here, who's different to normal. So if you want to just introduce yourself, Caroline.
I'm Caroline Wolfenden. I'm the Director of Change and Delivery.
Excellent, thanks, Caroline. So we've got apologies from Councillor Singh, Councillor Wilkie. Yeah. Oh, right. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained on the agenda. Does anybody have interests now? No? Okay, we'll move on. Item 2, minutes of the last meeting on the 1st of August 2024. Are there any issues to raise from the minutes of the last meeting? No? Do I have a proposer and a seconder? Proposer, thanks, Councillor Beach, Councillor Ainsworth, and Councillor Hayden. Are they all okay, everybody? Yeah, okay. So we agree with the minutes as an accurate record. Public questions? I have no public questions. Item 4, notice of executive decisions, pages 7 to 48 of the virtual agenda pack. I hope you've all seen the new pack that's come out that's got everything in it to make you make it easier so you don't have to flip between the different items, which Claire's done for us. Does anybody have any comments on the... Does anybody have any comments on the executive decision? Councillor Hayden?
Sorry. Oh, it's on now. Sorry. Yeah, on the last page of the executive decision table, there are various scenarios where the decisions are made. And I think after we had the governance meeting last week, we added something to that decision. And that was about debt write-off, about having a 50k ceiling for the executive to sign off.
Okay, I don't think that was additional. I think that was additional to the minutes of the... you mean at full council?
No, not full council.
Right, okay.
Governance.
At governance.
Which will go to full council next time, but that was a recommendation that we put forward.
Oh, that will be added at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions on the executive decisions? No? Okay. We note that report. So item 5 is overview and scrutiny work programme for pages 49 to 50 of the virtual agenda pack. The draft overview and scrutiny work programme 24-25 has been circulated via email for comment and is now published. Please note that there is a slight amendment to the overview and scrutiny performance panel forward plan, in that the business plan's update is being brought forward from the 21st of November to the 24th of October. And is there any comments about this particular report at all? Just let me get it in front of me. Any queries yet, Councillor Snape?
Just on the review of how overview and scrutiny operates, I thought that, I'm not an expert, but I thought there were rules that we had to, things that we had to do, and other things that we could be doing that we aren't doing that other places might be doing better. Is that the idea? Or cause I thought like there was, you know, things that there's a way that everybody does it. And
Yeah, I think Darren was mentioning that there could be good practices that other people put in place that we could do, but I don't think there's anything that we're missing. I think it's just a more of familiarising ourselves with how it works, but also picking up on how other people do it as well. Just a couple of good tips. So in a way, it's a slightly training element to it, but it'll be a smaller task and finish group than number 1, which I think will, Darren was saying, will be really quite large. But from the work plan, the forward plan, sorry, we were just looking at the second item, the safeguarding children and vulnerable adults updates, page 49 if you've not found it. Wondering whether we could move that forward to, we talked about empty properties and empty properties that are owned by the council as well. They've put in place a new asset management system called Civica, and this could assist with that empty properties question of, because we were saying about empty properties, but some of our newer councillors might not know that there's a property just next door that's ours, and they wouldn't know that because maybe it's just not come up in conversation yet. So there's a way of getting a report to show us what the council owns, whether it's a piece of land, whether it's a property or a building, and then possibly discussing that empty properties or that Civica system, because it also goes into identifying things like our utility use, so gas, electrics, etc., which feeds into the green issues about trying to reduce and reuse, etc., and also not miss paying bills as well. So we did have an issue a while ago that a certain building was not on a list somewhere, and so we weren't paying the utility bill. And this new system called Civica brings all that ownership together, along with what we use it for, along with utilities, and along with its usage, so whether it's being used or not, or whether it's even being used for the purpose that it was originally bought for. Maybe we can look into that. So it was just a suggestion that, because there were a few people who come up with this empty properties query, because you've done the empty properties which are residential, so then we were moving on to commercial, whether we should substitute the safeguarding children and vulnerable adults update a little bit further in the year. Was that June 25?
Yeah, the first meeting of the municipal year.
Right,
2025.
okay. And bring in the empty properties Civica system, so we could question the officers who know about the system, and then that could develop into a task and finish group about underutilising certain buildings or underutilising property that we own. I don't know whether that's just a suggestion from myself and whether anybody would maybe agree with that, or whether they're really looking to keep that one in there. Councillor Green.
It'd be useful. You mentioned often I'm a new councillor, so knowing what properties we've got would definitely, finding what properties we own would definitely be useful from my point of view. So yeah, I think it's a fair shout what you just said there.
You were poised to your button there, Councillor Slope. Councillor Beach.
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to the empty properties, is a bane of my life. I think we need to give it a different title because I think people are going to get confused because we have done the task and finish that myself and Sarah worked on and we delivered the results of that. So I think we need to give it a different name because when you started talking about the task and finish group, I was thinking, well, we've already done that as a task and finish group. And you're right, at the training we did where we came up with topics, it was mentioned about purely the commercial side of it because the task and finish group didn't look at the commercial side, we looked at the residential side. So I think just for clarity going forward, yes, it's an excellent idea and would give us all an idea of what we do own as a council and what isn't in use. But I think we also need to give it a different title, Chair.
Definitely. From the beginning, we were talking. I was talking to Claire and Darren about the smaller task groups that we bring to one meeting, and that's why we started calling them spotlight. I don't know where the word come from, but I think Darren's put it in there. And this could be a spotlight, and it could be more on asset and buildings, and it would centre around the civica system because it's a new system. Obviously, all the databases from all the different departments. So Parks Department, for example, Housing Department, because we own houses as well. And all the other different departments all have put into the civic system, and we could learn about that system. But then from that we can see maybe some information it's actually going to give us, which is maybe under usage or some properties that are sat there that we don't know what happens to them or what's going to happen to them in the future. So what about spotlight assets and buildings? Does that sound a little bit more like, we'll just put Civica on the end of it and we'll swap that out. So we'll move safeguarding children and vulnerable adults update into the beginning of the next municipal year, and we'll pop that one in there and find the right officer for that system who's knowledgeable on that new system. Brilliant. So apart from the one change, is there any other comments about the draft work programme? Councillor Snape.
I was just thinking, I know it says executive forward plan and task and finishing monitoring reports, but I think in the past we've had it listed, monitoring report 1, 2, 3. So as members, because I know there was a couple of task groups a few years ago where there wasn't a follow-up report for nearly 2 years and you couldn't really keep track on it as a council to say, well, why have we not had I think it was something to do with housing and staff shortages and stuff. You couldn't really keep, I think without having that 1, 2, 3, because the third one's the last one, isn't it? You can't keep tabs how far down the line it is from when it started. I think that would maybe my own suggestion.
Great idea. Darren's just said we can map it, but if we maybe add the months in for the newer members, because if you just say Q1, if you wouldn't know whether it was January, February, March, or whether it was April, May, and June, which is actually the start of the financial year. So, however, you maybe a key at the bottom or something, just so as we understand the 1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever. Brill. Excellent. No other comments on the work programme. Well, the forward plan work programme. Good up. Oh, yeah. Councillor Towers.
Oh, it's working. Sorry. Just to ask, the spotlight reports, I get the idea that's kind of less of a deep dive into it, more of a kind of initial, shorter version of exploring something. If after the spotlight report we want to delve a bit deeper, is there a process of being able to do that?
Yes, so we're hoping that the spotlight reports will answer a lot of your questions, but then there may be questions that are maybe not answered, or you may want to investigate a piece of it, not the whole thing, because that's the thing about it. Some of the subjects are massive. We might be doing brilliantly on most things, and one thing you might just flag up as being not quite right, and that'll be the one that we go into. Whereas if we sometimes we put them on as task and finish groups, there's such a big subject, then it weakens it, and you're not actually going to find much out about the things that you're looking for. So with that, we should have an officer who knows about the new system, who'll be able to answer all the questions, but then something might crop up in the meeting that you want to move forward. We can come up with a task and finish group, excuse me, following that, and then explore it more deeply, and they can obviously try and get some more information on it for us. Is that okay? Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, so I have just been reminded we have a couple of volunteers for the 2 task groups at the top of the page. For the community cohesion, we've got Councillor Beach, Councillor Hayden, and possibly Councillor Wilkie, who's put a name down for both. She might want to do both. And then for the review of the overview and scrutiny how overview and scrutiny operates, Councillor McGuffin, I think I better go on that one as well. Right. Councillor Haynes. Oops, spelled it wrong. Yes, so we do need some more volunteers for them. So, yeah, Councillor Beach for the second one. Yep. Yes, Councillor Snape. Councillor Towers, second one or first one? Both? I'm trying. Oh. Councillor Brown, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm happy to volunteer for either. The second one, if you need names on there as well.
We do. I'll put you down for both, should I?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, pick one.
Councillor Hayden, I've got you down for the first one. Oh, right. Councillor Green. Top of page 49. So this one is community cohesion and support for refugees and asylum seekers, including associated housing issues. The review of how overview and scrutiny operates. Yeah. Councillor Khan, any? Yeah. Do you want to go on any councillors? No. Okay. And then if a couple more outside of the overview and scrutiny, because obviously we can take members outside as well. And if there's a shortage, well, the first one seems a little light, we might put out an appeal for that one. The second one seems quite top heavy now, so we'll do that. Is that done? That one?
Thank you. If the first one's light as well, put me on that one as well.
Okay. Brill. Thank you. What are we on now? Are we on 6? Oh no, number 5 has a decision, just a minute. Oh, right. So can I take it that we've approved the work programme going forward? Yeah, okay. So item 6 is the corporate strategy refresh 24-25. Now, I got the words right there.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, okay. So pages 51 to 78, and Caroline Wolfenden, the Director of Change and Delivery, is here to present this report, and then obviously take any questions afterwards. Caroline?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'd like to present this report, which is an update of the Corporate Strategy 2024-25. So the report is for information to explain, obviously, the process that we followed in terms of developing the corporate strategy for next year and the current progress that's been made. So the process started with a portfolio exchange meeting with executive members, which took place on the 11th of July. And we provided a big issues paper, which has been included at Appendix C for information, which just highlights, I think, some of the sort of like national, regional and local challenges that we need to obviously think about in the context of developing like our corporate priorities. During that discussion, it was agreed that we would keep the key priorities of the corporate strategy of 23-24 the same. So Appendix A, I've actually included the current corporate strategy for information. So if you refer to page 2 of the strategy, those commitments and priorities will remain the same for 24-25 as it was considered that they remain relevant to coming years. So the key thing that obviously we are looking to refresh is the corporate strategy project. So that's the we will section of the corporate strategy. And we've had a further portfolio exchange meeting on the 12th of September where we presented some possible options for corporate strategy projects, some areas like for consideration, and I've included those in the report at paragraph 15. So we still need to obviously determine the projects themselves. They've not actually been agreed as yet, but I just wanted for information just to highlight some of the areas where the discussions have been had and where executive members are quite keen to see some projects developed. So you'll see that there was a key focus on housing and homelessness and how we ensure access to affordable housing and also looking at housing standards. Something around the environment, so maybe focusing on our net zero ambitions and maybe looking at like food waste as a key priority. In terms of the economic theme, looking at how we invest in some of our like heritage assets, so possible future developments at Astley Hall, something around our visitor economy, jobs and skills and our business grants programme. Also looking at obviously the local plan, which is an ongoing piece of work, and then there was also some reference to the Woodlands site and how we might progress with that. And then in terms of the communities area, maybe looking at something around a provision for disabled residents, leisure facilities, the voluntary and community sector, and maybe something around antisocial behaviour. So those were just sort of like the general sort of like areas that executive members were keen to explore. And as I said, there's still like ongoing work being done around actually firming up like some projects. So just in terms of the timeline, we will be obviously like looking to confirm those projects like in the coming weeks, and that will be shared obviously with the leader and executive members. Alongside obviously the corporate strategy priorities, we always assign indicators so that we can measure our performance. So again, there'll be some work around identifying those indicators and setting like some targets around those. And we'll be looking to finalise the corporate strategy in November time. And then what usually happens is as part of the budget planning process, we'll go out and do a consultation like with our residents to as part of the budget consultation to say that this is where we'll be allocating our resources for next year, and these are the projects that we'll be looking to deliver. So that's just an update really of the process, and as I said, some of those sort of like discussion topics that have been had so far and the timeline for when the strategy will be finalised and presented to council. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Has anybody got any questions from the report? Yeah, Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Chair. Appendix B, it's quite concerning that even if all of in the table we are worse than the threshold. And I was just wondering, some of the residents that have responded, can we drill down as to what it is they're not satisfied with, especially in terms of the percentage of residents satisfied with the way the council run things, and that we're value for money. It deeply concerns me that we're performing quite badly if you read this. So I just wondered, is there any way we could get specifics around that?
So obviously the resident survey results have been presented to members previously. There is some work ongoing with officers to take that information and actually identify some actions like to take forward. I think what I would say in terms of obviously how we compare to the LGA polling results, there's actually been a decrease, I would say, quite generally in resident satisfaction, like across like local government in general. But obviously you can see that actually we are performing above the LGA like polling for some of those like key areas around, you know, being satisfied with the areas of place to live and the way the council like runs things, and you know, value for money. We are obviously, even though it is a fairly low figure, we are obviously above like other councils like in the sector, which is quite positive. But I think, you know, more generally we have seen like a reduction in resident satisfaction across most councils, to be honest. But I think it's actually quite positive that we are above that polling figure.
I've got Councillor Hayden, and then Councillor McGovern online, and then Councillor Lees. Just so you know, I've seen you. Hang on, let's 3 done. Councillor Hayden. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on there. It was just what you were saying about the budget will be decided in about November. With the change of government and the issues that are, you know, coming forward because of the change of policies, how stable do you think that budget's going to be?
Obviously, but the finances are not really my area. I do know obviously that our finance colleagues are looking to prepare the council's budget, and obviously to make sure that, you know, anything that does go in the corporate strategy we are able like to resource, which is you know, why we've been having like a lot of engagement around this, like with executive members, to make sure that any of the projects, you know, are realistic and we can like deliver them, and we can obviously, you know, set a budget around that. Our finance colleagues will be bringing budget information, I think, in December around the financial position. It's just obviously making sure like the two like pieces of work align.
It was about kind of like local government settlements and funding, whether there's going to be any. Is that settled for this particular year, or could there still be changes to it?
That's more a finance question, Councillor Hayden. But just to help, we have the chief finance officer coming to our January meeting on the budget draft consultation for 25-26. That's the next one that we're not in now, that we're going to be in. I think that's probably the ideal question for her, or rather her replacement, because she's retiring at the end of the year. So at the moment, Louise is in the frame, but name will be replaced in a bit, if that's all right. Yeah. So Councillor McGovern online.
Okay. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that report, and I just have a couple of questions to ask really on it. I mean, your focus is on moving forward, but because of my background in research, my focus is often on the information you use to set the policy, to decide how to move forward. So what I just wanted to ask you about was about your resident survey. So basically, I mean, the answers might be there and I just haven't seen them. But I realise that if we're looking at it's page 54, that you start to talk about the resident survey. So basically, you've got 1,432 responses. It's actually quite important to me to know how you selected your sample. It might be self-selected. It's unlikely to be random, but it might be stratified. Who knows how you did it? I can't see anywhere where it tells me. And the other thing is, as I've mentioned in other committees, that it's actually quite useful to have an appendix that gives your questionnaire, because I don't know if any of your questions are leading. I don't know if some of the questions are confusing or they're too complex, or you've got two questions in one. You may not have any of those things, but in terms of your survey matters, because it's on the basis of your survey that you compare yourselves to the region and nationally. So I think it's really important that we know the basis of that information. And just to move on to a second point, so that is a technical, I'm asking you a technical thing there, and it's just, that's how I look at information. If I could just go on to page 55 and just ask you another question, which is about the table that gives the resident survey. It's the resident survey 2023 to 2024, and it's got 3 core areas. And you appear to be using 2 pieces of data. You appear to be using the Chorley Council survey and the LGA survey, but I don't know, it looks like that. I was a bit concerned simply because it looks as if in your data, you've got the don't knows and no opinion mixed in with the satisfied or the dissatisfied or whatever you've got on it. So, for example, in that first line where it says 82%, that isn't, as far as I can see, 82% satisfied. That's 82%, which may be 70% don't know and 12% satisfied. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying it is. I'm just asking you the question in the context of scrutiny, because you're making decisions on that. So it's nothing to do with the policies.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McGovern. We were just saying at the last scrutiny meeting, I think it might have been the panel meeting, performance panel meeting, we were talking about the parameters of the questions and whether they were leading and how many people responded and where they were. And those actions will be taken forward to the next performance panel, which is, I think we just said it's in October. It's October now. That means next year, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, 24th of October. But Caroline obviously can answer some of the questions that you've said, but I think some of the explanations we've asked for that type of information to come forward more, and it will do back in October. But I'll jump over to Caroline and see if she can answer any of those many questions. Thanks, Councillor McGovern.
Yeah, so obviously the information that's been presented in this report was merely just really to give a flavour of the information. Obviously that has been used, like the insight, to support development of the corporate strategy priorities. I think a previous report has been presented to committee on the resident survey itself, and as you say, Chair, we did take away some questions like from the last meeting around providing further information around the methodology that was used, and I think as well we've looked to present the data without some of those like don't know and no responses. So that information is coming forward to the next meeting. This report was obviously meant to just give a bit of an update really on the priorities that we're looking to develop for the corporate strategy, and not really to go into massive amounts of detail around the resident survey, as that's already previously been presented and discussed.
Okay. So probably more information in October, Councillor McGovern. Oh, she disappeared. Councillor Lees, have you got a question?
Yeah, it's just a quick, following on from that, can you just clarify, does the 82% include the don't knows or no opinion, or is that the remaining 80% included the don't knows?
So that is included, the 82%.
So
It's a resident.
the don't know and no opinion are included in the 82%.
Yeah, that's what it says in the table.
So we don't know the actual satisfied amount, do we?
You can take those figures out, and as I said, we're going to bring some further information to the next meeting as per the questions last time.
Thank you.
I've got Councillor Snape and Councillor Green, but I don't know which was first. Councillor Green?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the projects, can councillors get involved in those projects? So the one I'm interested, there's two I'm interested in, is the provision for disabled residents in the communities, and because my wife's disabled, and I think having sort of experience sort of walking in her shoes, I think it's quite important that somebody with a bit of background on that is input. So either through somebody through a group that's got disabled experience, but I wouldn't mind if I could try and input myself. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Is that? I don't know. Are you talking about in Caroline's report?
On page 56. The projects going forward. So. I don't know if so involved in the project. So I don't know if as councillors we can get involved in those projects. But if we aren't, I'd be quite keen to make sure that somebody with a disability was involved in sort of helping those projects formulate. Because being an able-bodied person, and then being married to my wife, it's completely changed my perspective of what disabled people face. And I think if we set projects as an able person, potentially miss blind spots. So I think it's quite important that disabled people get involved in that, helping that strategy going forward. But I just say from a volunteer point of view, I'd be quite keen to do that. And likewise for the leisure facilities, one of the areas I'm quite keen about is just making sure that kids in the range from sort of 12 to 21, sort of around that sort of area, have input, because I think there's lots of focusing on younger kids and also young adults. But I still feel, certainly in my ward, there's a shortage there. So I think, again, having input from those type of groups to help formulate those. But I really like the projects you've got going forward. I just want to make sure they've got the right input. And like I say, if there's a way that as a council could have input, they're great.
So I'm guessing these are possible projects to go forward, which would then fall under an exec member.
At the moment, like I said, they're not specific projects because that's not been worked out as yet. Obviously we need to know exactly what that looks like in practice. I just wanted to kind of give you a flavour of the things that had been discussed by executive members around where they might like to see some projects like being developed. So I don't know what that project looks like, or if it will actually eventually find its way into the corporate strategy itself. But absolutely, it would fall under like the remit of the appropriate portfolio holder if it was to be included.
For me, if I wanted to get a hold of that in those, I would pick those out and go to the right exec member and say, I want to be involved in this and this, and see whether there's any room for you to be involved with, whether it's questioning, finding, seeking, to be involved with how that project actually runs or what makes up the project, if it becomes a project even, because at the moment, like you say, they're just themes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I think they're both those two are there. I think are really valuable things. And on just one other point on the disability, I think if you can try and make sure you've got neurodiversity and things like not just sort of physical disability, but also the mental side of it. But I would really welcome those two projects coming to fruition. And if I could help in any way, I'd love to do so.
I'll leave that with you to pick out your exec members on whichever one they fall under.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Snape.
Thank you. Just following on from Russ's point, really, it's a slightly pedantic point, but I notice you list your timeline and your list of stakeholders, but just following on from Russ's point, I don't think, I was at the both of the portfolio exchange meetings online, but none of this has actually come past backbench group members within the group, and I'm quite surprised that it's come to scrutiny before it's come to, because then councillors like Russ would have been able to have raise those questions and, you know, and raise those, like, you know, ideas for projects and stuff, and find out those finite intricacies of what. I know we have an executive cabinet system, but I think in the past we've always had some form of discussion, at least, with the backbench members of the Labour group, and I don't think we've had that. I do think that needs feeding back, and I'll raise it outside of the meeting, but I'm quite surprised it's come to scrutiny before it's actually been discussed as within the group. It's supposed to be the administration.
I think this is the chance to see what's been discussed by maybe SMT, SLT, and the different groups that it mentions there. And yeah, I would link in with the group and say, when do we get to know about these themes? Do you have anything to add to that, Caroline?
First portfolio exchange meeting that Councillor Bradley had asked that those discussions like take place sort of outside of the meeting and then be brought back to that further portfolio exchange. That was my understanding of the ask at that very first portfolio meeting.
No, I mean, I know we have a cabinet system, but I know in the past, I've been a councillor for 12 years, I know I've always been quite impressed that there's always been like a partnerships person who's come every year to the Labour group and said, this is what you've had last year, what are you thinking this year? Even if none of the ideas have gone forward, it's just been an avenue to get backbench members' views, and likewise, I think you know, the door's always been open for the opposition group members, but I'm just quite surprised, because otherwise we'd have had that discussion at the Labour group meeting. I know we have a cabinet system, but it should have been discussed at Labour group in my view as well. Sorry.
We don't know. I know it's not really okay. No, and I suppose it's a question, and if you find out, let me know, but I'll ask as well and find out whether this report maybe has preempted that discussion, and this is the chance for us to input first because we're O&S, and then maybe it comes to you secondly. I don't know. I don't mean you personally, I mean everybody.
I'm happy to take that away as an action. I think what I would say is, obviously I'm fairly new to the council, so this is a new process, like for myself and some of my staff. So, you know, we're still sort of like learning about actually the process of like refreshing the strategy. So this is like a bit of a learning curve like for us. So it's good to know actually that, you know, there was a policy person who's previously come, you know, to Labour group meetings and had those discussions, because I wasn't aware of that, but we can certainly obviously add it into the process like for future years and make sure that's included. Yeah.
Thanks, Caroline. It might just have been missed, or it might be that this preempts that, and in which case maybe that should come first. I don't know. But I suppose ONS being able to scrutinise the report and the themes that are coming up, yeah, well, it's just one of those steps on the ladder up to it being produced. Any more questions? Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, I just wondered on the demographic side, which is on page 75, where do you got the estimates for how Chorley will be, the numbers of residents in Chorley, the population? I just wonder on how you arrive at your numbers.
So there's
not a trick question, just wondered how.
No, we probably should have included the sources, to be honest, in the document, but it actually comes from ONS, the Office for National Statistics, and they usually do like mid-year estimates, which, you know, sort of like estimate like what the population like is likely to be in terms of growth. So that's where the information comes from, but obviously like in future documents we'll make sure that the sources are referenced.
Just following on from that, ONS obviously have their methods, but we're quite I would say we're quite a high growth and building houses and getting new people. Would we not be the average that ONS produces? Would we be above average? Would we need to put input in there another piece of the source, for example, which is more Chorley specific, because we are growing? Just a question. You don't have to answer that one. Sorry, just a statement. You don't have to answer that one. But maybe just a thought on that, because if ONS do like, oh well, the average amount of children born is whatever, and the average amount of houses built is whatever, and we can see the difference in the amount of houses Chorley's built to even our two neighbours, which is completely different, which means our percentage is increasing quicker.
It's data from lots of different sources to obviously to support, you know, those population projections. So it's not something that obviously we would provide data to. I suppose anything that is published and that's in the, you know, the national domain, the public domain, they would like use to do their calculations.
Maybe I should be asking then, does ONS publish those figures specifically for Chorley, or are they countrywide? Are we using a countrywide figure or a Chorley specific figure?
In terms of the population increase? Yeah, so that will be their estimation for Chorley based on the sources like that they use. And like as I said, they do mid-year estimates.
And did they pull in things like planning applications approved and things like that for major?
I'm not entirely sure what they
okay.
use, obviously, to do the calculation, but I can certainly go
We can
away
look up the source
and find out.
And maybe distribute the source, and we can maybe go and have a look ourselves how they do those reports, or where they gather information from. And we might be a little bit. And Councillor McGovern says she's lovely, great at research. You might want to research it and let us know. He's not listening to me. Oh.
I'm listening. I am listening, but actually, all you need to go is on the ONS neighbourhood statistics. You can look at all the statistics for Chorley. Well, you can look at a wide range of Chorley statistics.
Yeah, they're historic.
In the public domain.
Yeah, they're historic, and I think the ONS ones here are projecting, aren't they?
Yeah, but they will use that information, so they'll look at obviously birth rates, they'll look at migration and things like that, and then obviously they'll do a calculation.
Right. Okay.
They'll calculate the trend. So they do. That's what they do. That's what projections are.
Yeah. Brill. Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from the point that Councillor Hayden raised, the incidents of crime, are these stats from the police or is it from the ONS? Because again, it doesn't say where your source is from.
So I think these ones are actually from the police. So we were provided like with a data report from the police.
Yeah, possibly put in the source.
Yes,
and because if anybody's really interested, they might want to come back to you and say, can I see that report?
Yeah.
Or can I see what you asked them? Or can I see what they said? Councillor Hayden.
Just be interesting to know, do we have a match about what the estimate was as to what the actual position was at a certain period of time, just to see whether or not the estimates are valid?
I don't know.
Whether anything's ever carried out.
Does our data do like a point in time comparison with the projection?
Well, obviously we'll have the previous like years data in terms of like what the actual population like was. And as I said, they tend to like look at the trends, but we can provide that information in terms of what the. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That should be easy.
Whether anybody actually spends time doing that, stop point in time and look back at the projections from a couple of years before and say, oh, that was way off or whatever. Lovely. Any more questions for Caroline? Thanks very much, Caroline, for all that.
Thank you.
And we note the report. Is that okay, everybody? Yeah, good. Item 7, health scrutiny update, pages 79 to 80. Councillor Francis provided us a report there, but she may wish to tell us more.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to be very brief because I have a 7 o'clock meeting at the Parish Council I should have been at. So I'll take it the report is read. Happy to answer any questions. You'll have seen from the report, essentially there were 2 items of significance on the agenda. The first one is a process that's happening over in Southport and Ormskirk, which will have an impact upon us because, as members may well be aware, the way the health divisions are worked out now across Lancashire and South Cumbria. Integrated Care Board, we belong in Chorley. Sorry, Chorley belongs in central Lancashire, and this area is within our place. So that means that any impacts on Ormskirk and Southport hospitals may well impact on Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust as well. So it was interesting sitting there, because basically it was a rerun of what we had over here when we had our health, our care. If some of you remember that process that started in about 2017, ran for about 3 years, and then when the new hospitals project came out, it was abandoned. But so the same sort of process is taking place over there. So just to be aware of that. It will take some time. They're hoping to get to the post-consultation business case by the beginning of next year, which I think is a very optimistic time frame if Charlie is anything to go by. But we shall see. So at this stage, it's early stages, it's just out to consultation, and it'll be some time before they come back with a list of preferred options and then drill it down to preferred option and go out to the public. So just so you're aware of that. And the second item, which I think is very interesting really, is about speech and language assessment. And so the public health people were presenting the result of a pilot that they've undertaken in Hyndburn regarding speech, language and communication in children. And they have introduced changes that reduce the number of people waiting on the list from 100 to 0 within a matter of months. And they seem to have done this by simply making it a lot easier for people to self-refer, or nursery schools or places of education to refer at a much earlier stage. So they got the help early, and early interventions were simpler instead of waiting 12 months, 18 months and then having much more expensive and significant problems. So this is going to be rolled out across all of Lancashire. We haven't got a date as yet for Chorley and South Ribble, I'm sorry to say. I think it's because they looked at the areas of deprivation, and because on paper Chorley and South Ribble are perhaps less needy than some other parts of Lancashire. Unfortunately, as we all know, there are pockets within the boroughs, both Chorley and South Ribble, that with significantly high deprivation. So we've suggested contacting Lancashire County Council Public Health to say if it's possible to bring us forward sooner, because we already have the estates here. We can use the children's centres, no, they're not called that anymore, the family hubs. We've got family hubs and community centres and places that we could use to implement this programme. So if there are other areas that maybe are held back because they haven't got the places to do it in, then we'd quite like to move up that list, because it seems to be a really significant thing that they're doing here. Thanks. So happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Councillor Ainsworth.
Thanks, Chair. It's only a quick one. The working groups, can anybody get involved in them, or is it just people who are on the board, on the speech and language?
Sorry, it's not playing, is it? I have to say, I really don't know the answer to that. I think because it's done pan-Lancashire, and don't forget South Cumbria as well now, because the ICB area is very wide. Although I think, no, it's Lancashire County Council is. So the work is being done by Public Health Lancashire. So I don't think we as borough councillors really have much input to it, other than be aware of the reports that they're producing. Thanks.
I suppose if you do find out, just let us know, and then if there's anybody feels that that's a good area for them to get involved in, then they can put themselves forward if we have a route. Is there any other questions for Councillor Hayden?
I just wondered what the latest was on the new hospital programme.
Yeah, I can answer that from the...
You've got enough time for that one, Margaret.
I can answer that because this was my second meeting I was at this today, was the board meeting at the Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust. So I went there as governor, and they did an update on the new hospitals programme. But it's basically business as usual. As you will have seen from the newspapers, the 40 hospitals that were supposed to be built, all of them are up for review now. The feeling is that Preston's got a very good case. If you've been to Royal Preston Hospital recently, you'll know what I mean. You know, there are very good reasons why that hospital needs to be replaced. So I don't think there's any undue concern about it. As far as I'm aware, the land purchase has yet to be signed off. So we're same as really as we were before. There's nothing new to say. Thank you.
If there's no more questions for Councillor France, but if you have one later, drop her an email. I'm sure she'll. And if it's of interest to all of us, I'm sure you can circulate it to all of us. Thanks very much. And thank you for your report as well. Yes, definitely. Should have said I could have brought you forward. Item 8, reports from the task and finish groups. We've got a written report from Councillor Singh, but I believe Councillor Beach may wish to interject there. Councillor Beach?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm reporting on behalf of the Chair and Vice Chair who are unable to make tonight's meeting. The Suicide, Bereavement and Prevention Task Group met on the 20th of August 2024 and September 26th, 2024. We have now interviewed Angela Allen, who is the Chief Exec for Bags for Strife, Andy's Man Club, and the Executive Members for Health, Wellbeing and Partnerships and Early Intervention. Our next step is to conduct final interviews with representatives from Lancashire Constabulary and Amparo, which is a service for people affected by suicide. We're already considering some potential recommendations based on speaking to support services and individuals bereaved by suicide. And our final meeting is to take place on the 30th of October, where we will consider and agree our final report for the review. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Beach, for updating us. Councillor Singh couldn't attend tonight. Is there any questions for Councillor Beach or? No, right. No problem. Brilliant. Thanks very much. And number 9, any urgent business previously agreed? I've got nothing previously agreed, but if there's anything, no. Okay, I close the meeting. Thanks very much.